We're going to go to the newspapers now on the programme, and Dipti is joining us here on set for a look through the newspapers for us. Dipti, you're starting, aren't you, with reactions to the government's unveiling of conclusions from the weeks-long public debates. Of course, this is back here in France.
That's right. Emmanuel Macron and the government launched those town hall-style public debates back in mid-January. It was sort of an immediate response to the growing anger of the yellow vest movement, but it was also widely an opportunity for him, being seen as too aloof from the French people, to reach out to them, to understand their grievances, to go to their cities and talk to them. The regional paper Midi Libre quotes Prime Minister Edouard Philippe as saying that the main issue that's really come out of this is that people want lower taxes soon. The paper wondering, though, whether the debates were just a smokescreen or did they actually have any useful democratic purpose. The business paper Les Echos also headlining on Philippe today, who's quoted as saying that we need to respond to this fiscal exasperation. The government has ruled out increasing the fuel tax, which of course was at the origin of those yellow vest movement back in November.
Of course, it's not just about taxes, though, is it? The people's demands are long and wide-ranging. That's what Le Parisien is saying here.
Yeah, that's right. That headline actually says just where can they go to? How far can they go to? Because this is not just about taxes. This is also grievances that extend to the public sector, to the environment, and a whole other range of issues. Le Parisien is calling for a strong response from the government while acknowledging that it does have a, quote, titanic task ahead of it. And that's exactly what the cartoonist Willem evokes in Libé's cartoon today. Here you have Philippe facing numerous demands from throngs of people, and Macron sort of flippantly saying, just, you know, sum that all up neatly and succinctly for me.
Yeah, nice and easy to do. The right-leaning paper Le Figaro is talking about this in its editorial today.
I love how the editorial begins today. I quote, Edouard Philippe is not Emmanuel Macron, and not just because Edouard Philippe can speak succinctly while the president is known to talk for hours. True. The paper, in its editorial, warns the government against the temptation to hit the middle classes hard in its attempt to respond to the issues. I quote, everyone knows that they are the cash cows of our social model. The paper calls for lower taxes, but also reduced public spending.
Yeah, we shall see whether they take Le Figaro's advice. Now, Israelis, they're casting their votes today in the country's general elections, in which Benjamin Netanyahu is hoping to be re-elected for a fifth term, isn't it? Yeah,
a record fifth term. He'll have to fend off corruption charges that have dogged him for the last part of his term, and also tough competition coming mainly from Benny Gantz, the former army general, who's promising to run on a clean governance platform. The two are in a tight race for the leadership. That's what the Jerusalem Post reports on its front page. The paper noting that this election is also a referendum on Netanyahu's popularity and governance itself. Are the people happy with his rule, or have his personal scandals overshadowed their perception of him as leader? For Haaretz, the centre-left paper, the proof is in his record. The paper's editors today outlining giving us a very severe analysis of Netanyahu's decade in power.
More elections, this time in India. Millions of Indians heading to voting stations this week too, in national elections there.
That's right, and 2 days before they head to the voting booths, Narendra Modi has released his party, the BJP party, has released a manifesto of 75 electoral pledges. He's hoping to be re-elected for the second time, and among those electoral pledges, he's focusing on national security, expanding income support and pensions for farmers, greater infrastructure, new laws on faith, and electoral reform. The manifesto mixes nationalism with welfarism. That's what the Hindu Business Line says on its front page, and you can see this manifesto making the front of the Times of India as well. It could be seen as a last-ditch attempt by Narendra Modi to court the rural vote. The manifesto is released by the government, but it's largely about the Indian Prime Minister, as you see him appearing here as a pop-up in that manifesto.
Talking of pop-ups, we've got pop-up jokes for you for this next one, because a new survey has been conducted that finds 7 out of 10 French people find themselves funny, apparently.
That's right. And apparently there's a difference between being funny and finding yourself funny, and also
yeah, well, it certainly is. Yeah.
And having a sense of humor and being generally responsive to jokes. So this is what I learned from this article today. And, you know, it's funny because it's funny is not exactly the thing you think of when you think of French people. You think
not
of
necessarily.
You know, arrogant, aloof, impolite, all the stereotypes that you might think of French people. But funny, apparently they think they're hilarious. This is apparently a very serious study. It does exist, a study, or survey rather. 75% of French men, 65% of French women believe they're funny.
Higher for men, there's a surprise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm sure women are actually funnier, but they just don't, you know, say they are. Surprise, surprise, among them, Parisians think they're, the most amount of Parisians think they're funny. Now, you might think, what kind of funny, you know, are we talking about? Are we talking about dark humor, toilet humor? Well, apparently they think they're really good at puns. And, you know, I mean, I know our producer, Chris, is a big fan of the puns.
He certainly is a big fan of puns.
We actually have a WhatsApp group where we exchange puns on a regular basis. But I must say, I personally have a preference for dark humor and play on words.
Dark humor and play on words. What was the list of what French people you think of French people as?
Oh, no, this is what the stereotype people think of French people.
What was it? Arrogant, things like that?
I don't remember.
That's Chris. That's Chris. Yeah. Thank you, Dipti. He's saying boo in our ear. But anyway.
It's what people allegedly think of French people.
Allegedly.